instead of just a presentation on a listing of statistics that we found, and we'll certainly highlight some of them as we go through, thought it would be much more interesting to get the views of the panelists on various questions, and yourselves as we go through, and then, as I said, we'll highlight a few of the key findings as well. Christian mentioned that you have in front of you the report that talks about the CFO Audit Committee relationships, also brings in others as well, the external audit, the internal auditor, the CEO, and how those individuals affect and play into the relationship with the CFO and Audit Committee. I find it a fascinating relationship, and it's really not a relationship that gets a lot of airtime, but it is very dynamic and can change on a dime if something happens in an organization. It's always a little bit of give and take. So I think it's great to get a bit of airtime. How many people here are CFOs or senior financial individuals in management? Maybe a show of hands so we get a sense of the room here. Those that sit on audit committees as audit committee members? Okay, a good mix. Internal auditors? Okay. You know who we'll be asking. CEOs, any CEOs in the room? We got a couple, so we've got to be careful how we talk about the CEOs. And what about auditors? John Gordon, that's great. I got one other, so we got to take it easy in the auditors. We're outnumbered a little bit here. So that's good. I think we'll have a great discussion. So there'll be 4 areas we're going to jump upon. The first will be a CFO Audit Committee relationship kind of as a whole. And then we'll touch upon the increasing demands on the Audit Committee and what that means for the CFO. And then the CEO and Internal Audit Committee, how it plays into that CFO Audit Committee relationship, and then touch upon the external audit as well. So, a couple of quotes, and you'll find these in your publication. Noses in, fingers out. And that was how we kind of started some discussions about the relationship. Is that the basis for the Audit Committee carrying out their task? Have their noses in, understand what's going on, but fingers out, and when does it make sense to have their fingers in a little bit more than they know? So we highlight a couple of quotes here. First, Lori, who's sitting on the panel. It's important to be involved as an audit committee member. I totally agree you've got to have your noses in. But what if your nose tells you something is wrong? Can you afford to keep your fingers out at that stage? Then the question is, what's the duty of the audit committee to make sure that's fixed? They can't just step back and say, well, go fix it. I think there's a level of involvement, and that's when you're going to get your fingers into it. So maybe, I can start off with going on that quote and put some context around that. When do you think it is appropriate to have your fingers in?
Well, I think this is one that I worry a little bit about in terms of boards and audit committees, in terms of, we all understand the thrust for governance and the fact that management is supposed to manage and the boards are to ensure that there's good corporate governance. But then the question becomes is what if there's a deficiency or if your nose is telling you that there might not be something right with the financials or what's being presented to the audit committee. And that's where I think you've got to step up and make sure that it does get remedied, that the resources are brought to bear if management's not capable of resolving the issue or needs additional help. Then the audit committee, I think, very much needs to sit on top of that to make sure that it gets resolved. And that's where I'd say that the fingers out doesn't apply. That you've in fact got to ensure that it gets remedied. That management's got the resources, the ability to get resolved, and that you've been satisfied.
And Vic, you've got vast experience in your CFO roles, and now the other side. What are your thoughts when it comes to the nose in, fingers out?
I think to some degree it depends on the level of maturity of the organization. You can see how experienced the CFO is. Laurie's absolutely right. If there's something there, then you have to get involved. And this goes back to your relationship of the CFO and the audit committee chair, which has to be very, very close. No question, if you find something that you think is awry, then you obviously have to get more than just your nose in. You obviously have to become involved. From my experience, it depends on the level of maturity, the experience of the CFO. I think underlying all of this is the fact that I think boards rely on audit committees really heavily to be sure that the financial statements are, we'll say okay, I don't want to say correct, we'll say okay. And in order to be able to do that, the relationship between the CFO and the audit committee chair must be very, very close, must be a good working relationship. There must be trust, there must be respect, there must be dialogue and time and all of those things. That will enable you then to find out if things are okay as you approach your various audit committee meetings. From my experience, the relationship is key, but an understanding of how experienced the CFO is also very, very important. Some are more experienced than others, and therefore some will require more involvement than others. So it's just, there's no blank firm answer. It just depends.
Mark, your thoughts?
Well, as the least experienced senior officer here, there is the relationship between the audit committee and the senior financial officer. And at the end of the day, nowhere in any of our organizations would we ever let a single individual run without having a point of second thought in there. I mean, that's pretty much the role of management. And even the most senior financial officer, there should be some of that second thought going on somewhere. And the audit committee provides that. We're not asking them to get thoroughly involved in the organization, but to bring some of that experience to help make sure that we're right on the right course. And so they need to be there. And it's an important component to preserving my own role, as well as making sure the organization is on sound footing.
There's two mics. I should have mentioned it. Adrian and Miriam have mics in the back, and you have questions at the table. Don't just throw up your hand if you want to comment, because we'd be interested in your views as well, because some of your views are in this report. The next, I mean, getting the balance right is, yes. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Did the study provide any insight as to how the audit committee might support or help the CFO? Because I think an important point was brought up in terms of maturity. Not everybody is of equal skills or equal maturity. To what extent does the audit committee assist the CFO through the CEO or whatever to resolve whatever the issues are?
You know, I don't think there was anything specifically stated in the report, but lots throughout that would, glean off. But if I just jump ahead to the comment from Isabel, audit committees today are getting good at oversight. One of the things we often overlook today is insight. So when I look at the board or the audit committee, obviously they have a fiduciary role in terms of oversight, but given the background and the skill level, I really appreciate their insight. I don't see this as meddling. If you've got the right people with the strong backgrounds, their insights can be invaluable. It is always good to hear thoughts from smart people. So, I think that how dynamic that relationship is, and I think Vic's point as to knowing when to step in is a junior individual. I think audit committee members can't be shrinking violence and need to know when they step up and insert themselves into that relationship or a mentoring relationship to a sense as well. And the CEO can play parts of that. We'll talk a little bit more about the CEO's relationship and how they play into that. But I think that relationship is, you can insert yourself as much as you want. If the CFO is not receptive, you're not going to go too far in helping the company unless you start pulling rank along the way. I mean, and that kind of goes to the second quote on this page as well. Getting that balance right is very important. I mean, transparency between the CFO and the chair is important. Make sure that you have good, open communication, that you're transparent, so all issues are put on the table. Sometimes you may want to discuss some of these issues ahead of the committee meeting with the audit committee chair concerning how to approach them within the committee to make better use of the time of the members and be proactive.